and two perpendicular lines. So here's the difference. These lines intersect, but a lot of lines intersect. They cross each other. But there's a special way in which these lines cross each other, and it has to do with the angle. It's like if I put this like this, it should make a perfect T or a perfect X. And the way that's done is by the angle of the intersection. This should be at 90 degrees. So the intersection on all sides is 90 degrees. You don't have one that's bigger than the other. They're all the same. That's what makes these lines perpendicular. Now, when you look at the equations, let's see. I'm going to use the same equation. I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. Okay? There's the equation we want to go to for graphing. 1, 2, 3, 4. My intercept is -4. My slope is 1, 2, 3 over 1. So 3 over 1, you can just write like this, 3x. 3 over 1 is just 3. So there is the first equation. Okay? The other equation has a y-intercept of 1, and the slope is down 1 over 3. So because it's going down 1, it's -1 over 3. And there's your second equation. Now, let's take a look at these two slopes. So we have one slope that is a positive 3 over 1, and you have another slope that is a negative 1 over 3. What do you notice about them? What do you notice about these slopes? Right, they're the same numbers, but they're flipped. So, and one is positive and the other is negative. So guys, this is what we call a negative reciprocal. So a negative reciprocal is basically this. If you have one slope, let's just say whatever numbers they are, a over b, the other one will be negative b over a. And if those are the two slopes that you're comparing, then you have perpendicular lines. You have this situation. Okay, so that's how you identify it with just looking at the slopes. And again, the y-intercepts really don't matter much here, unless you're trying to find the equation. So here, let's do the word problem. Write an equation that is perpendicular to this equation, to this line, and goes through this point. Now there's a problem with this. This is not slope-intercept. This is in standard form. So guys, we don't want to graph this. We want to change this to make it look like y equals mx plus b. So before we write the new equation, let's change the way we write this one. So we're going to use, move the x over, minus x to both sides. X cancels out, you're left with this. Now I'm going to put the x first, just so it looks more like mx plus b. Now I want to get rid of this 6, so I'm going to divide by -6. But if you divide one thing, you divide all of it. So here's my new equation. Y equals, because these cancel out, negative over negative makes positive 1/6. Yep, there's a 1 up there. 1 over 6, and it's positive. This is also positive, but you simplify this. 2 over 6, divide them both by 2, 1/3. And guys, this equation now looks like this. Okay, this is the equation we're going to use to compare the lines. Now, if the line is perpendicular, we have to do the negative reciprocal of this, which means my new line will not be 1 over 6, but -6 over 1, but I'm just going to write it as -6. -6 over 1 is the negative reciprocal of this. Now, to find my b, I'm going to use these points right here. I'm going to plug in these points to find my y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in 6 over here and -5 over here. Multiply those two, I get 30 plus b. Okay, to solve for this b, I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides. because I want the b by itself. My answer for b is 6 minus 30, negative 24. So my other equation, this equation with the negative 6, is now going to be y equals negative 6x minus 24. And these are the two lines I'm comparing. And when I compare them, they're perpendicular because you have 1, 6, and you have negative 6 over 1. These are perpendicular. So be careful when you're comparing. Never take the line when it's written in anything else rather than slope-intercept. Always have the line look like slope-intercept whenever you're comparing parallel, perpendicular, whatever. All right? Next. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither of these two? So the good news is this one's already written and I have my slope. The slope is 4. I don't have the slope here. I need to make this one look like this one, the slope-intercept, not standard form. So again, we're going to go through our steps of rewriting the equation. Move the x to the other side. Because if you want it to look like this, the y needs to be by itself, but it's not by itself. It has an 8 next to it. Okay, now we got to get rid of that 8. So that 8 is multiplying. The inverse of multiplying is dividing, but you have to divide everything by 8. And this is where I don't use decimals for this, guys. Do not use decimals when you're changing this. Simplify it as a fraction. So what would be the simplified fraction of 2 over 8? What can you divide both of these numbers by? Divide them both by 2. What's 2 divided by 2? What's 8 divided by 2? What's 16 divided by 8? Now, the reason I don't want a decimal is because now I can compare this to this. What is my slope? If you have a decimal, it's not going to be obvious. But when you have it as a fraction, oh wait, this is the negative reciprocal of that. These are perpendicular. Now, if it's not a negative, let's just say this was a positive sign, this would be neither. It needs to be a different sign as well. And if it was just a negative 4, if this was just a negative 4 and that was a positive 4, that would also be neither. Okay? It has to be a negative reciprocal. Let's do one more like this. What if they're both not written in that format? So what if you have one in point slope? What if you have one in standard form? Well, the good news is in point slope, remember the equation. You still have slope. What's your slope? So when you're comparing them to this, you need to have this give you the slope. This is not slope. Remember, this is standard form. Ax plus by equals c. This doesn't give you slope. You can't use that. So we're going to have to rewrite this problem. Let's start by getting rid of the 5x. You're going to have something that looks like this. Yeah, notice I like to put the x first so that it looks like this, y equals mx plus b. Now, when I look at my slope, I'm comparing this number to this number. And this is the negative reciprocal of this. Because you could just put this over 1 and it's the flip version. So guys, those are perpendicular lines.